welcome to our very first All of Us Research Program Facebook Live event. So my name is Beatrice, and I work at the Hepatitis B Foundation, and I'm based in Philadelphia. Thaddeus, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Thaddeus Pham, he, him. I'm the Viral Hepatitis Prevention Coordinator with the Hawaii Department of Health, which is always a mouthful, but I'm also the co-director of our community coalition, Hep Free Hawaii, which put together Hep Free 2030, you see behind me, our statewide elimination strategy. So very excited to talk with Beatrice today. We get to talk with quite a bit actually about another project that we're working on.
Yes, so thank you so much. And we're really happy for everyone who joined us today. And thank you for being here. So today we're going to be discussing more ways that we can increase diversity and inclusion in medical research, particularly among Asian American and Pacific Islander communities through the All of Us research program. So we'll start out by having a discussion about the program itself, and then we'll also be monitoring for comments and questions from any audience members. You can feel free to ask us anything that's on your mind, and we'll address it at the end of our time together. So we hope that you find this valuable and informative, and we can go ahead and get started. So I will start. So Thaddeus, could you tell us a little bit about what the All of Us research program is?
Sure, and great question to start with. So the All of Us Research Program is an initiative of the National Institutes of Health. Basically, what they're trying to do is make health and medical research more inclusive of all the people that are represented in the United States. So for many years, and I think maybe folks who are joining might already know this, but the average patient that is considered in research is usually someone who is white, who is male, and who is cisgender. So, and because of that, the medicine that comes out of this research and the medical decisions reflect that particular community and that demographic. So what All of Us is trying to do is expand inclusivity so that research and medicine actually reflects the communities that we know and that we're part of and that we work with. So what they're trying to do is gather as much data from all the different communities, all the diverse communities that we work with, and not just to collect data about like demographics and genetics, but also, you know, like social determinants of health. What are the other factors that come into play so that they can truly make medicine more responsive? And I guess, you know, I'll stop there and I'll throw it back to you, Beatrice, because I'm starting to kind of already allude to this idea of precision medicine. And I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that in terms of what that is.
Yeah, definitely. So as you kind of mentioned, so the main aim of and goal of All of Us is to really improve and increase the practice of precision medicine, which is kind of involves tailoring medical care to individual people to make it as precise as possible for each individual person. So kind of like when you have a pair of prescription glasses that they're only for you and no one else will really be able to see out of them. So is the goal to make healthcare kind of as tailored to individuals as possible. So especially in recent years, there's been more and more research that's kind of come to light that has shown that different metrics that we've used for a long time. So standard measurements for things like blood pressure and body mass index and temperature and things like that. Those are actually not, they're more specific to individual people, and the kind of standard measurements that we use may not necessarily be accurate. So by collecting more information about more people, we can work to make more informed decisions and help people ultimately live longer and healthier lives from people from diverse communities and that are reflective of the United States itself. So kind of on that note, we can maybe touch on, Thaddeus, why precision medicine is important for all people, including AAPI and other kind of underrepresented communities.
Yeah, and Thanks for kind of explaining precision medicine. I think, like the glasses analogy is so appropriate in terms of we all might have different prescriptions, but we need to kind of reflect the needs of our individual communities. And that's what we're trying to do is, in a sense, create prescriptions or find the right prescription for our communities. So for our AAPI or Asian American Pacific Islander and other communities, we're trying to make sure that precision medicine reflects the needs of those communities. So for example, I'll bring up research did find that different conditions like heart disease or high blood pressure or even diabetes are not fully understood in our communities, especially AAPI communities. So as a result, the medications that come out of them, for example, the heart medication Plavix, have been shown to be much less effective in AAPI community members, right? And when we think back on the average patient, if it's reflecting white cisgender males, it might not be appropriate for our communities or not as effective, right? So we need a lot more research. We need a lot more data to understand what our community needs are in terms of medicine and how we can tailor medicine to meet those needs. So right now, I think, and I might, hopefully it could be larger, but I think the last time we looked at the data, only about 5% of participants in all of us identify as being AAPI or Asian American Pacific Islander. So we would love to get this number up. If we have more people represented, then we have more, I don't know, data for research, but I think also advocacy, presence matters and having more people represented really matters as we've seen in advocacy and policy and similarly in research. So we hope that folks join all of us, especially if you're from the AAPI community, so that we can truly be represented in research and that medicine really reflects our needs. And let's, I'll throw it back to you, Beatrice. As we think about these things, maybe you could speak to how all of us is trying to make health research more inclusive with all of these things in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So all of us is really trying to work with many different community partners and national partners as well around the country to do a lot more outreach to different groups, particularly groups that often don't get this kind of information. And there's many kind of, for a lot of, particularly for research studies and things like clinical trials and things like that, the same types of people tend to be recruited over and over again. And there hasn't been really kind of this concentrated, or this is kind of just a concentrated effort to reach out to just more people and just to include those who don't tend to get this kind of information. So the Hepatitis B Foundation and Hep Free Hawaii are both proud to be part of this initiative and joining with the Asian Engagement and Recruitment Corps. It's part of the Asian Health Coalition in Chicago to really try to make sure that healthcare in America is as just and equitable as it can be, and that it really reaches all people, and that no one is left out of living a long and healthy life because doctors didn't have a full understanding of everything that they needed to best help people and to best make sure that that health and healthcare are truly accessible and equitable. So with that in mind, we do acknowledge that there are many different communities that are already doing this type of work and that are doing health research that's focused on equity. And this is in no way meant to supplant or override those efforts. So if you are already involved in community efforts towards health research or health equity, please support those whenever possible, absolutely. And finally, just to kind of bring around, so with overall, all of us's major aim is to try to recruit 1 million people to participate and to follow them ideally over the course of 10 years. So right now, there are about 350,000 people who are enrolled, so about a third of the way there. And of those, about less than 5% come from the AAPI community. So we're working to bring that number up as much as possible. And as we've kind of been saying, having more inclusion and more people represented will really make the medical knowledge that's available more well-rounded and more robust, so that so that we have a fuller understanding of really how to have a healthier population overall. So with all that kind of in mind about what the program is and kind of what the goals are, what we can kind of shift focus a little bit to talk more about kind of what participation entails. So Thaddeus, do you want to chat about that a little bit?
Yeah, and well, first of all, I think something that's important for people to remember about all of us is it's completely controlled by the participant, in that you get to decide how much information you give, if you give information, and how much, and you can stop at any time, right? So just really to acknowledge that this is within the power of the individual and the community. So we hope that folks join, and you can, again, decide on what terms and what extent you want to be involved. So in order to participate, you can go to www.joinallofus.org, which I have conveniently written right here, and I think Beatrice has as well. So
Yes.
as you can see, we're very high tech, very community oriented. So just to kind of go through the process, which I've done myself, or at least part of the process, is you actually go to the website, so joinallofus.org, and then you just provide some basic information, right? So provide just basic information about yourself, some demographics. You complete a series of surveys about your health, your lifestyle, your environment, and other factors that influence your overall well-being. If you'd like, you would then grant researchers access to your electronic health record. Again, that's up to you, but you will create an account and it is confidential. You can choose to submit biosamples, so it's saliva, urine, or blood, and depending where you are, there's different sites that can collect that information. And then you can use tools that they will provide to track your health over time. But these could include things like Fitbit, to track movement, and other instruments that track nutrition, sleep, water intake, kind of the things that are all those fun gadgets and stuff. And you can track it yourself, or sometimes they're able to provide these tools for you. But fairly simple. I know in Hawaii, we're just scaling up in terms of collecting biosamples and other things. So just check with your local kind of like sites, or go to the website again at joinallofus.org. You can see here again. And just remember that you get to decide how much information you submit, and you can always stop if you choose to. So it's all up to you. So we kind of want to reiterate that. I know another concern is privacy. And so I'll turn it back to you, Beatrice, maybe to speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, very important to know that you are absolutely in control, and it's 100% driven by you for sure. So the privacy is a great question, and privacy and security are both top priorities for the All of Us research program. So it's really important to know that as soon as you kind of go online and submit any information, so whether it be your surveys about your lifestyle and your health, or giving access to any health records or any biosamples you might submit, all of the information that you submit is de-identified as soon as you put it in. So nothing has your name or any personal information on it, but rather it will be assigned a special number. And as soon as that number is created, all of your personal identifying information is destroyed. So it will, all anyone will see is this number. And it's really important. So all of the researchers who are working on the study will, anytime they interact with anyone's kind of information that they submit, they are all held to very high standards of ethics and privacy. So it's part of their job to uphold security and privacy at all times. And the best thing about the program is that they have special data security specialists whose job it is to regularly try to hack into the system to make sure that all of the security measures that are in place work. So so they really, take it very seriously and try to make sure that it is always working to the best of its ability. So privacy is really held to a very high standard for this program. So yeah, and on that note, speaking of kind of concerns that folks might have about the program, something else might be cultural and linguistic differences that are present. There are many of these around the country in many different communities. So maybe Thaddeus, do you want to talk about if the program is respectful of cultural and linguistic differences and kind of how that's dealt with?
Yeah, and that's why we were so excited to be a part of this project because working in Hawaii, especially with our coalition over the past 10 years, we really acknowledge that we need to ensure inclusivity and diversity, especially given all the different communities that we work with locally. And then if we expand it to the entire nation, we can only imagine how many languages and cultures that we are trying to reach out to. So all of us is always continuing to learn about all these different cultures and linguistic differences so that we can make sure that we reach out appropriately, both in linguistic wise and both culturally. And they're really dedicated to try to make materials and information available in a wide variety of languages. Even in our meetings with all of us partners, people are always bringing up new languages or new communities, and they always try to see what opportunities there are to address them in really meaningful and respectful ways. So it was really kind of heartening to see that since we work so closely with our communities. For example, in Hawaii, we work a lot with our Micronesian communities, especially from Marshall Islands and Chuuk. And so what we try to do locally is when we talk about all of us, we work with our local partners and our local leaders to provide talk story sessions that are in language and also integrate all of us as one of the components that they can talk about. So this is just a cool opportunity we notice and something that all of us is always happy to partner with. So they have reached out to community coalitions like ourselves so that we can ensure that our local folks feel that they're getting information in a way that makes the most sense to them. So I will also acknowledge, and I think they would acknowledge this too, that it's a work in progress, right? There's always more materials and always new things to learn from our community members. And the nice thing is that they're willing to listen and see how they can respond and see what's available. So we're continuing to work with them to provide information, to make suggestions. And I think that's the really important part of the process is that they're willing to listen and to respond. So I think that's the exciting part. So another concern that comes up kind of tied to this is, immigrant or migrant or refugee status. And I'll ask you, Beatrice, if someone is undocumented, for example, can they still participate in all of us?
Yes, that is a great question. And yes, you absolutely can. There are no questions at all that are asked about citizenship status, and everyone is encouraged to participate regardless of documentation. So there's nothing asked about that at all. So a very important topic. And also just on the note of kind of suggestions and all of us being open, if anyone who's watching has any kind of comments or any languages that you might find helpful or anything, any feedback you'd like to provide for all of us, you can feel free to put it in the comments section as well. We'd love to hear it. So another concern that might kind of come up, since we do have such a diversity of cultures and communities, is kind of trust in Western medicine. There might be some individuals or communities that might have less confidence in kind of the system of Western healthcare. So Thaddeus, do you want to maybe just address briefly if anyone or what kind of all of us is doing about that and kind of how they're holding Western and traditional medicine together?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And I can speak to kind of like an example in Hawaii. So, there are definitely a lot of the folks that we work with and the communities that I'm part of as well. There is maybe a distrust or a hesitancy around Western medicine as opposed to, complementary or traditional medicine. And so what we've learned works with our local communities at least is to speak to the fact that we can use both and and that they complement each other. So I spoke a few years ago to a Chinese herbalist in Hawaii who said that, you know, the traditional medicine or the complementary medicine or the herbal medicine that she uses is really just to kind of, in a sense, keep our bodies healthy. But Western medicine is the thing that can kind of come in and deal with whatever the disease or the virus or the other condition is. So they kind of work together to kind of strengthen and keep it healthy as much as possible, while the other medicine, Western medicine, can kind of do the more precise work, right? And that kind of brings us back to precision medicine. So, and you know, this comes up a lot, especially when we're working with our older communities and our older populations. So maybe Beatrice, if you could speak to, you know, what the program is doing to reach out to that particular, you know, the older populations who are not as comfortable, for example, using websites or, you know, social media and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So there we'll talk a little bit about COVID-19's impact on all of us shortly, but definitely in-person events do generally help to reach out to older community members. And these will hopefully expand more as things start to open up and the pandemic slowly loosens its hold. And also, one thing that we've kind of been experimenting with is reaching out to younger and student populations who are active on digital platforms and social media to ask for their help in reaching out to older populations and creative ways of doing that. So if there is anyone watching who has creative or innovative ideas for reaching out, you can feel free to let us know. And we're always looking for more ideas. And other initiatives have been to kind of make sure to integrate all of us into kind of existing services at different health centers and community centers that serve older community members. So to make sure to always put mention of it in, whether in person or Zoom events. And yeah, so if anyone does have, you know, further ideas, we'd always love to hear them for sure. So yeah, so now kind of moving forward, if someone or if you are participating in the program and you decide that you don't want to participate anymore, how would all of us kind of address that? Thaddeus, if you want to talk to that.
Oh, cool. I love this one because it's an easy question. So if you don't want to participate anymore, you don't have to. That's completely fine, as I was saying earlier, right? The most important thing with all of us is that you're in control and that it's all up to you. So you can stop at any point in terms of participating. You can discontinue your enrollment. You can manage all of your preferences. You can make all these decisions simply by visiting the website that you've seen before. So joinallofus.org. So once you make an account, you can just go here and you can manage all your preferences and everything that you would want to change or that you need to do, including, you know, disenrolling. So so that was an easy one. I'm glad I got a kind of a softball one, and I'm actually gonna throw it back to Beatrice with maybe a little a more meaty one, which is, you know, you already alluded to this, but how has COVID-19 affected all of us, and in terms of what we should expect?
Yes. So yes, COVID-19 has had a significant impact on all of us, as it has everywhere. So as I kind of mentioned before, the ability to do in-person community events has really declined. Again, this will hopefully open up again soon as more people get vaccinated and are engaging again with others. There is a vehicle called the Journey Bus that is specifically for all of us, and that kind of travels, I think, all around the country to different communities to get people to explain what all of us is, get people engaged and interested in participating. So that will hopefully resume in the coming months to get started again. And this is helpful again in reaching out to older community members and people who are less savvy or comfortable using computers or phones or digital platforms. So that will be great when that is able to come back. And one other thing, so part of the process for some of the information that's collected, as Thaddeus mentioned before, are biosamples. So samples of blood and urine that can be collected that's been halted a lot, since that would require someone to visit a lab, which have been a lot of which has halted because of in-person interactions, but that will hopefully get going again soon. Saliva samples are typically collected through the mail, so that has been able to continue throughout the pandemic. Once a person, if you do decide to enroll in the program, one of the surveys that you have the option of completing is where it will ask you about how COVID-19 has affected your life and lifestyle. So it is kind of incorporated into the study itself. But yes, it's definitely had a significant impact for sure. So one other question that might be kind of top of mind is, if a person does decide to enroll in the study, will they be compensated for their participation? So Thaddeus, would you like to take this one?
Sure, yeah. So there is actually compensation available in small amounts, specifically for the biosample collection. So those things that you'd mentioned. Outside of this, participation is voluntary, but it's also not compensated financially. And I'll also add, I don't think the Journey Bus is available in Hawaii yet, but it is in the continental US, I believe. So, but yeah, thank you, Beatrice. And then I guess, as we're starting to close out, and, and then we can answer any questions that come up, I'll ask you, maybe, why should people participate?
Yeah, so there are a number of reasons that hopefully, you'll be encouraged and inspired to participate. So if you do decide to participate in All of Us, it really offers a very unique opportunity to take part in a pretty groundbreaking research program that's really trying to meet people where they are. It's trying to collect more diverse information. As Thaddeus mentioned before, it collects information about, not just your height, weight, and blood pressure, but, where you live, what you eat, if you have kids, all kinds of things. And people are really starting to come to an understanding of how, your whole life affects your health, and are starting to take that into account. So it's really cool, and just kind of a brand new, it's only a couple of years old. I think it started just a few years ago, so it's pretty new, and it's just an opportunity to really to make a contribution to science and kind of advance medicine, and really make an impact on kind of the present and the future for different communities. So especially, it's cool to think about future generations that, children and grandchildren, and even further down the line, who will be impacted by the knowledge that we get today from this study. And their lives will be able to be improved and lengthened by this information and knowledge. And one cool part of participating is that you can have a chance to learn about your own health in depth, and you can also learn about any risk factors that you or your family might have for particular diseases. So things like diabetes or heart disease, things like that, that might affect some communities differently than others. If you learn about them early and that you have risk for them, then you can do early detection, and you can get treatment early on, so that you can kind of nip it in the bud, and then move on with your life without it maybe having as significant of an effect as it might otherwise. So that's a really cool opportunity. And then last of all, the people who participate in All of Us are really kind of partners in the research. So a lot of times people might think of research studies or clinical trials or things like that as kind of the researchers being in control and having all the power and making all the decisions. But All of Us really wants to make this collaborative. So participants, people who participate in the study, have a chance to kind of work alongside the researchers and help shape the process. So can help shape like questions that are asked, and and the work that is done, and can really kind of form a partnership in this process, which is very cool. So it's really inclusive in more ways than one. So we hope you participate. And to wrap it up, Thaddeus, do you want to let us know how people can participate?
Sure, and I think you probably remember this by now, everyone, but to learn more and to sign up, just go to joinallofus.org, so you can see here. And really just consider like what Beatrice was saying, this for at least in our coalition and with Hep Free Hawaii, we just considered an opportunity for empowerment for our communities to be part of the decision-making process, to really have that voice in research and to make sure that research is more inclusive. So for us, it's a health equity issue, and whatever reason you decide to join, we encourage you to at least consider it, go to the website, check it out, and see if you or your family members or loved ones would like to participate. So we also want to thank you. So mahalo for, if you do decide to kind of participate, for helping to create a healthier world, a more equitable world in terms of medicine. And also, I want to thank Beatrice and the Hepatitis B Foundation and Hep United for taking the lead on this project and including us in it. So I want to thank you as well, Beatrice. So I guess we can stop there, but joinallofus.org.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I was getting a feedback, so I was hearing everything twice, but thank you so much, Thaddeus, for doing this, and everyone for joining. If anyone does have any questions, you can feel free to let us know in the comments. But I see that it's great to, there was a comment that it's great that we have control over our information, which is very true. It's important to remember how inclusive and participatory it is. Yeah, and I think we can go ahead and wrap it up if there's no other comments. But thank you so much again, everyone, for your participation, and the website is listed. And we hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Beatrice.
Yeah, thanks, Thaddeus. Thanks so much.
Bye,
All right, take
everyone.
care.